Yeah, so his question is about looking for price bounces off of support resistance lines. So it looks like he's suggesting the pivots indicator, for example, as an indicator. So he wants to learn how to combine a inflection solver, and the inflection solver basically would identify, reversals in price. So let's see here. I probably might need to go to a minute chart or a tick chart, something like that. So yeah, combine a inflection solver with a support resistance solver and try and find those price bounces off of support resistance lines. Also, he wants to, okay, yeah, so also lines that he draws on the chart himself. Yeah, so right now, NinjaTrader doesn't properly support using drawn lines. So yeah, I'll just kind of keep it simple. So it's a complex topic. I mean, I really kind of simplified it, but but right now, BloodHound doesn't incorporate supporting drawn lines just because, yeah, NinjaTrader hasn't really implemented, something better suited for real-time trading. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So, so right now, trying to access drawn lines for real-time live trading it's not supported properly. It would just bog down. It would end up bogging down BloodHound too much, and so you would probably get into trades really late. A lot of slippage, a lot of late signals. We're waiting on Ninja to kind of improve that ability. So, all right, but as far as using indicators, so let me put the pivots indicator on the chart here. So yeah, when it comes to using indicators, yeah, we can use the support resistance solver. I'll put the pivots indicator on here. There we go. Yeah, one note about the pivots indicator. I'm not sure if this is still an issue with NinjaTrader 8, but with NinjaTrader 7, in order to get it to work correctly, the pivots indicator had to be set to calculate from intraday data. So there was a bug with NinjaTrader 7 when you tried to use daily bars. So, I still keep it on calculate from intraday data just in case. So, all right, so let's get that on the chart, right? And let's see. So at least we're prices around R1 here. Let's see where else. Let's see. All right, yeah, there's another spot there. So actually, yeah, let's work right here. This is an ideal situation here. All right, yeah, so we have a bar moving up and then a bar closing down. So ideal, perfect situation. Also, as you guys are going to see right now, I had, yeah, let me pause this question for a moment. So I have removed BloodHound version 2 and went back to BloodHound version 1. So I actually meant to mention this before I got into anybody's questions here, but kind of got caught away by Larry's question. So with BloodHound version 2, we found yesterday, we discovered that there's a pretty major bug with the threshold solver, and the threshold solver is one of those workhorses that gets used a lot, as far as solvers go. So, so to make sure I don't run into that bug, I went back to BloodHound version 1 for now. So, all right. So anyway, so I'm going to skip updating there. And so here I am back with BloodHound version 1. So let me first set in a file name, 8th today. Okay, so now that I got a file name in there, we're good to go. So, so let's switch over to the logic tab here, and let me start a new logic template. And let's see, what should we call this? All right. So yeah, I don't know what to call this. So there you go. Inflection and support resistance solver combo. So, all right. So but I always like to start with the easy parts first. So the inflection solver is obviously going to be or should be fairly obvious that this will be the easiest one to set up here. Okay, let's give this a name. So this is going to be the inflection on price. All right, so there's our name. And so the input, we're going to have to change the type. We're going to change it from indicator to price. There we go. And we'll just look at the closing price of the bar, you know, as reversing directions there, right? So yeah, so you can kind of think of the inflection solver as a reversal solver, right? Because that's what an inflection is on a chart. It's basically just a reversal in direction. So right, and of course, yeah, we can see there's, you know, all kinds of reversals in price. You know, every time it flips up and down, you know, we're getting a reversal there in price. So, all right, so next part is the support resistance solver. There we go. Let's add that in. All right, and so this is the pivots. I'll shorten that down, pivots, support resistance there. Okay, so here's really what Larry's question is probably breaking down to is, which mode do I use? You know, this is the most confusing part. And, you know, if you bring up the documentation, I would suggest, even after watching this, I would suggest watching the documentation here. So if we go to help, documentation, all right, so here's the getting started page. But, you know, let's just use the menu on the left here. So we'll scroll down, right, and under the solvers here, let's see, where is it? There we go. There's support and resistance right there. So we'll select that. And there's a training video right there on the support resistance solver, which, you know, obviously will kind of go through and explain the different modes here, headwind, tailwind, you know, and the other settings here as well. So, but since we're looking for bounces off of a support resistance line, what we're looking for is, or what we want to use is tailwind mode, right? So if price, you know, is pushing off of a resistance line, right? That resistance line is giving a tailwind, right? So to it, I guess you could, yeah, think of it that way there. And headwind, I guess might as well cover this, right? So headwind is for identifying if you're trading into a resistance line, right? Because you wouldn't want to take a long trade when you're right here, right? You're too close to a resistance line. So the resistance line becomes headwind when you're too close to it. And so therefore you don't want to trade into a headwind. So think of it that way. You know, but when you're looking for bounces, right, you want a tailwind behind your trade. And so this resistance line, you know, becomes a tailwind. When you get close enough to the resistance line, it becomes a tailwind if you're looking to take a reversal trade, right, an opposite trade. So, or yeah, so we want tailwind mode. And then next thing is we want to use, let's see, use an indicator. Yeah, we're using an indicator for the support resistance, which is right, the pivots. So let's set that to true. Okay. And so now we can see the select indicator section becomes visible now, right? It opens up. So now we can go in and select our pivots indicator. All right, there's our pivots. And again, I have calculate from intraday data set there. And the one thing that's unique about the support resistance solver is you can actually select all plots. So it's the one solver where you can select all the plots there. So, okay, so we have everything selected for us. And let's see here. Yeah, so let's use, yeah, we'll use the closing price. Yeah, we'll use the closing price. And let's also use like the high of the bar as well. And the low of the bar, you know, if it's a a long bounce, you know, off of a support line. So for now, we'll just use the close. And next step is we want to set our distance targets, you know, like how close does the close need to get, right, to the support resistance line before, you know, you would consider it a tailwind for price to bounce off. So, and to keep things simple, I'm going to change from ATRs to, yeah, let's just change it over to points. Right. Points is going to be a lot easier to visualize on the chart. And so let's see, where are we? Okay, that's 406. So that's 6 points right there. Yeah, so let's say we need to get within 5 points. So yeah, there we go. All right, so I set the ideal distance and the maximum distance both to 5 points. And as far as the outputs, we can just use the default settings here, right? Again, if you want to get into the details of each of the outputs, you know, you can watch that training video that I showed you earlier, and that will go into greater detail on all of these outputs here. So for now, we'll just keep the defaults. And let's see here. And I'm expecting a, let's see, a short signal on this bar here. Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, I had an error message down here below when I loaded in this chart, and one of those index out of range benign errors. So sorry. Yeah, I missed that. I didn't reload the chart. So if you ever get any of those index out of range errors, all you got to do is just reload the chart, and there we go. So that'll fix it. So reloading the chart just forces NinjaTrader to recalculate all the indicators, you know, that BloodHound needs, and then that fixes that error message there. So there we go. So now we can see, right, the close. So these two bars here, that close is, you know, within 5 points of the R1 line there. Let me narrow this down a little bit. Let's see. Wow, I wonder how narrow this needs to be. Okay, that's a little too much there. All right. There we go. Okay, so R1, there we go. So now, you know, so now, what do we, so let's take a look at the inflection solver and take a look at something here, right? So on these down bars, right, that down bar is clearly, right, the reversal, or, you know, what you could consider, right, the potential bounce off of the R1, right? And so let me mark these shorts here. There we go, right? And now let's take a look at the support resistance, right? So the support resistance, we're getting a signal on the up bars because an up bar brings the closing price, right, close enough to actually produce a signal. Well, actually, we're not done yet. So, but now this is a good point to realize, right? So because we want to combine an inflection solver, right, we can see that we get the signal here, but the bar doesn't reverse until the next bar, right? So this short here needs to be moved over to here on the reversal down. And the same with this bar here, right? This close here, which is, you know, within 5 points, but the bar doesn't reverse until the next bar down, right? So you'll see, you know, sometimes you run into situations like this, right? So what you could do is you could use a look back like that. And with the look back, what we're using is the displacement, right? And it's set to 1 by default. So the displacement is already on by default here. And let me give this a name first. There we go. So I have a displacement of 1. And now you can see, right, those short signals have now been shifted over 1 bar, right? So if we take a look at this, right, without the displacement, right, it's on the up bar, it's on the doji, and then with the displacement, it's now shifted onto the down bar and onto the down bar, right? So all right, so we'll come back to this in a moment here. So earlier when I was building this support resistance solver, right, it's using the close price. And I said that we should also probably look at the high of the bar, right, as well, or the low of the bar. So let's do that. Let's get those other solvers built here. So let's go over to the solvers tab, and I'm going to select my support resistance solver, make a copy of it. And actually, I'm going to make 2 copies of it here. Yeah, let's actually give these, it's going to clarify the names here. All right, so this one, this solver here is using the closing price. And these copies here, well, this copy, this one, I'll set it to use the high price. And this other one, I'll set it to use the low price. There. All right, so I have 3 support resistance solvers now using, you know, the primary kind of bar prices that I guess you'd be looking for to be up there. So, so now let's go and put those on the board here. So we're going to go to solvers, existing nodes, right? And there's those 2 new support resistance solvers I just made. So let's drop this down. And if we look at this, right, there we go. So look, so the high of these bars are within, and look, the high of this bar is actually above, it's above the pivot line there. So therefore it's giving us a long, right? So there's that, and let's go add the other one here, the low. And there's the low, and yeah, so on this doji, right, all 4 prices are the same, and they're all within 5 points here. So let's actually see if I can find a good example for using the low price. And let's see, no, that's not a good example. Let's go to, scroll back to yesterday. Here we go. Yeah, so here we go. So here's a good example, right? So that low is just sitting right on top of the pivot line there, giving us a long, right? So if we're using the low prices, right, then, you know, clearly we'd be using the low price to check for long bounces, you know, bounces upward off of the pivot line. So, but we can see that sometimes the low price will actually give us a short signal, right? So if the low price, you know, if the bar, you know, yeah, if the bar breaks through and the low ends up on the bottom side of the pivot line, right, then we get a short. So we probably don't want the short signals, you know, when that low is just broken through. So what we can do is take the evaluate here and set it to long only. That way, right, with the lows of the bar, we're only getting longs there when the bar is above the support resistance line, right? And that low is within proximity, right? So for the low, we're probably only interested in the long outputs. So with the high, right, with the high price of the bars, well, probably, so we'd only be interested in the short signals, right? The opposite signals there. So we'll set that to shorts. And so now, let's see, I'm going to actually disconnect this for now. And so now we need to combine all of these support resistance solvers together, right? Because they're all basically functioning as one. Each of them is analyzing their own different bar price, right? So what we're going to do is add an OR node there. There we go. And let's take a look at that OR node. Yeah. And so there we go. So now when basically the bars are primarily underneath your pivot line or support resistance line, right? You're getting this short output when price is, close enough, to your support resistance line, right? So let's go back to where we were working. Let's see, where was that? There we go. All right. So there we go. So now we have a bunch of short signals, all nice and cleaned up there. Right. Yeah. And so now the task is to combine it with this inflection solver here. So let's see here. We probably can just combine it with an AND node. I think we're just going to get lucky here. So if we connect this all up, it's probably going to work. Okay, yeah, so it worked there. But, why didn't it work on this second bar here? Right? Why didn't it work with the second arrow? So, so let's take a look at our support resistance output there. Well, look, there is no signal, right? There is no output on that bar because the high is actually on the wrong side, and the close is too far down, right? So we kind of missed it, but the previous bar gave us a signal, and several bars back gave us a signal. So that kind of goes to show that we do actually need this displacement here, like so, right? And so now with this look back node and this displacement, right, we now have a short signal on both of the down bars with the red arrows, right? And just for good measure, we can also increase the look back period to 2 and set the mode to max, right? And that gives us even, actually, you know what? Yeah, this is probably a little better here. So instead of using the displacement, we'll just add a look back period of 2. So on every bar, we're looking back to see if there was a short signal, and then extend it forward. So let's see here. Let's take a look. And yeah, here we go. Let's use the inflection solver, right? So we know we got short. No, actually, no, that's confusing. Okay, yeah, let's do this. Actually, there. There. All right. So I have a copy, right, of the close price, in the support resistance solver there. So there we go. So there is, let's see, I should probably let's put a little dot right there. Triangle, diamond. There we go. So there's two diamonds marking the two short signals. And so now let's compare that to the look back, right, which has a look back period of 2 set to max, right? And we can see what it does is it just kind of fills it all in, right? So the signals are coming from the diamonds and it gets filled in, right? It gets pulled forward 1 bar, not actually shifted, but right, you still get the bar the signal came from, but also the next bar after you get the signal as well. So, all right. So the big difference is displacement actually shifts everything over. The look back keeps the signal on the signal bar, but also adds an extra one. So it's kind of like it extends the signal forward. Think of it that way. Just think of it like a signal extender. So that'll give us a little, more robustness there. So instead of shifting things, instead of using the displacement to shift, we'll use the look back there. There we go. So we'll change the name. There we go. So we're using a look back 2 period with the max setting there. And so now if we combine that in, let's get rid of that. There we go. All right. Yeah, there we go. So now, right, we have 3 short signals, right, as price kind of looked like it was bouncing and starting to reverse off of that pivot line. So the key points here to Larry's question, in getting the inflection, right, the inflection solver of price combined, with the support resistance is, first of all, you need to figure out, what bar prices do you need to analyze. And so to make a more, complete picture, because, right, the markets are really, really random. So we needed to look at the high of the bar, right, the close of the bar, and the low of the bar, right? And you might even maybe decide maybe you need to look at the open of the bar, right? So, another thing we could have done is on these reversal down bars, we could have actually taken this solver here, and instead of using the close price, maybe if we used the open price, because on these down bars, right, look where the open's at. The open is way up there, near the support resistance line, so the open price, might have been better. It just depends on what exactly you're looking for. So yeah, if you're just using this for pure discretionary, kind of situation, maybe all you're interested in is just looking at, let me put this back to the close here. Maybe you're just interested in looking at when the closing price of the bar gets close enough, and then making your own kind of discretionary decisions as to whether you're going to get into the trade or not. So, all right. So there's lots of ways, to kind of skin this cat, so to speak. Okay. So with that, I think we're done. Great.